It was a city like any other, a place of bright lights and dark alleys, where laughter and screams could be mistaken in the dead of night, where the hum of life continued, ignorant of the shadows lurking beneath. Milwaukee was a city that felt safe, wrapped in the illusion of routine, until it wasn't. Until the whispers began, like a cold wind that swept down deserted streets, brushing against the nape of your neck, making you shiver even on the warmest of nights. Whispers of something dark, something monstrous hiding in plain sight. It began with missing persons, as it often does. Faces on milk cartons, posters tacked to telephone poles, smiling faces that stared out at the passers-by, hopeful eyes that begged for attention, for remembrance. Young men, mostly. They had dreams once. They had places to be, families who waited for them to come home. But home was not where they ended up. They were swallowed by the darkness, one by one, until the city's whispers grew louder, and people began to sense that something was terribly wrong. The neighborhood seemed ordinary enough. Rows of brownstones, children playing in the yards, the distant sound of traffic, a constant backdrop. Yet there was one building, an apartment complex at 924 North 25th Street, where the curtains were always drawn, where the windows seemed to watch like dead eyes. No one paid it much attention at first. It was just another building, just another place where people came and went, lived and died. But then there was the smell, a sweet, rotting smell that clung to the air like death itself, that seemed to seep from the very walls. Neighbors complained. They knocked on the door, asked questions, but always received the same calm, quiet answer. "Spoiled meat," the tenant would say with a strange smile. A tall, awkward man with pale skin and glasses that magnified his distant, unblinking eyes. He was polite, courteous even, just a little odd. He told them his freezer had broken, that the meat had spoiled, that it would soon be taken care of. The landlord believed him. The neighbors moved on. The smell remained. Inside that apartment, behind those closed curtains, a different world existed. A world of secrets, of horror, of unimaginable darkness. Jeffrey Dahmer's world. A world where the mundane was twisted into the macabre, where the ordinary became a veil for the unspeakable. To enter that place was to step into a nightmare, to walk through a portal where light was swallowed and hope strangled in the dark. The apartment was small, claustrophobic, a single room with a bed, a television, a fridge, and a table. But it was the details that turned the stomach, that sent a chill racing down the spine of even the most hardened detectives. The air was thick with the sickly scent of decomposition, a cloying sweet stench that seemed to cling to the walls, the floor, the very fabric of the room. The carpet was stained, dark patches that spoke of things that should not be seen. And then there were the barrels. Large, industrial drums, sealed tight. No one knew what they contained at first, but the smell that emanated from them was enough to suggest something terrible, something wrong. On the walls were photographs, dozens of them, black and white images that seemed to pulse with an unnatural life. They showed young men in various stages of undress, their bodies posed in ways that were both unnatural and deeply disturbing. Some looked like they were sleeping, others, not so much. And in the midst of it all, Dahmer himself stood, captured in a reflection in the corner of one photograph, his expression serene, almost contemplative, like an artist admiring his work. For years he had hunted in plain sight. He would frequent the local bars, the clubs, looking for the lonely, the lost, the ones who wouldn't be missed. He had a way about him, a quiet charm, an ability to disarm with a smile, to lull with a soft-spoken word. He would invite them back to his apartment, offer them a drink, a promise of companionship. But those who stepped across that threshold never left. Not whole, not alive. There were stories, so many stories, each more horrific than the last. He would drug them first, let them slip into unconsciousness. And then the real horror began. The drilling, the mutilation, the dark rituals that only he understood. There were rumors of experiments, of attempts to create zombies, to bend life and death to his will. He would keep their skulls, their bones as trophies, as mementos of his work. The fridge held things it should not have held. Pieces of flesh, organs in jars, eyes that stared back, unblinking. He consumed them, some said, ate their hearts, their livers, their biceps. It was not enough to kill them. He had to make them a part of him, to ingest them, to feel them inside him. It was a communion, a ritual, a grotesque sacrament to his own insanity. And always there was that smile. Gentle, almost shy, like a boy caught with his hand in the cookie jar. But the terror couldn't stay hidden forever. The thin veil of normalcy began to fray. A young man, barely more than a boy, was found running down the street, naked, handcuffed, his eyes wide with terror. He spoke of a man, a madman, who had tried to kill him, who had brought him back to that terrible place. The police came. They knocked on the door, were greeted by that same soft-spoken man with the big glasses and the quiet smile. He let them in, spoke calmly, reassured them. The boy was returned to his captor. It was just a misunderstanding, he said, and they believed him, for a while. But the boy's screams lingered, an echo that refused to fade, and then finally, a mistake. A slip. A misstep that brought the darkness into the light. A final victim who got away, who ran and ran until he found help, who spoke of handcuffs, of photographs, of a man who had wanted to do terrible things. And when the police returned, they were not so easily turned away. Inside that small apartment, they found hell. The barrels were opened, the photographs examined, the stench, the filth, the horror. Too much, too overwhelming. And there in the fridge, wrapped in plastic like some grotesque butcher's shop, they found what was left of those who had vanished into the night. The freezer was filled with horrors too terrible to describe. Flesh stripped from bone, bodies dismembered with clinical precision. Jeffrey Dahmer sat in the corner, hands cuffed, eyes staring blankly ahead, that same quiet smile still lingering on his lips. He spoke softly, candidly, as if confessing to some minor transgression. He told them everything, the abductions, the murders, the cannibalism. He described the taste, the texture, the methods he used to preserve, to consume. He spoke of fantasies too dark, too depraved to be uttered aloud. And all the while, his tone was calm, almost relieved, as if a great weight had been lifted from his shoulders. For the people of Milwaukee, the truth was a scar that would never fully heal. A dark chapter, written in blood and fear, in the knowledge that a monster had lived among them, hunted among them. And for those who had lived, for the families of the dead, there was no solace, no peace, only the endless replay of what might have been, of what was taken from them. Jeffrey Dahmer would never walk the streets again, but his shadow remained. His crimes were dissected, analyzed, sensationalized, and retold 1,000 times, but no amount of scrutiny could fully explain the darkness that had taken root in his soul. The place where logic failed, where reason faltered, and madness reigned. And still, in the cold, echoing halls of the mind, there is a question that lingers, a whisper that refuses to be silenced. What drives a man to such depths? What makes the familiar so terrifying, the normal so abnormal? And how many more Jeffrey Dahmers are out there, smiling their quiet smiles, hiding in plain sight, waiting for their moment to emerge from... For some questions there are no answers, only the knowledge that evil is real, and it wears many faces.